You're listening to the A Bit From Within podcast with Felicia Marty. What if we just really work on self-validation? You can start tuning out voices that make you feel even more insecure in your body or in your life. You can find your own inner sense of strength from within. Watch out for those thoughts of, I am so bad, or I am so fat, or I'm not good enough, or I could never. We have to stop thinking that way. And we have to start replacing those thoughts with validating our accomplishments and our own strengths and the things that we love about ourselves. We have to draw our focus onto that. Hello there, and thank you so much for joining me today for a new episode of the A Bit From Within podcast. My name is Felicia. I am a yoga teacher and self-care mentor based in Denver, Colorado. I also am a business owner. I run a successful photography business, and now I am kind of opening my heart and my endeavors up to really helping people step into their own sense of self-worth and reminding you just to be kind and gentle with yourself whenever possible. And today, this message comes with a little bit of tough love because I have just been moving through this world and interacting with some of the people that I find the most special, people who are friends of mine, people who I just love so dearly. And yet they have these sneaky habits of being so mean to themselves. And I say that with self-compassion because I have these tendencies too. I think we all do, where we are unfortunately kind of preconditioned to constantly be noticing what's wrong with us and constantly being in fix-it mode. You know, there's a reason why the beauty industry is doing so well and the fitness industry is doing so well, and even the self-help industry, right? Even, I guess, this industry that I'm in a little bit, which is why I always try to be very mindful when I am connecting and speaking on these topics to never make you feel as though you do have this problem, but just my goal is to put this out there and say, this is something that I've dealt with or something I've noticed, and it's up to you to decide, is this something that's relevant for the conversation within me right now? Is there something I can take away from this? And usually there's just a little bit that does inspire us, that does connect with us, which is why the whole name A Bit From Within was so important to me and why I chose it as the name of this podcast and the name of my business. So yes, we are going to be talking about why hating yourself isn't working for you and how to create a much kinder self-dialogue within, or at least what are some of the ways you can do that. I'm not going to probably be able to solve all of those problems right now, but I will share with you some major takeaways and some ideas that I've been thinking about. But first, let's dive into today's Astro Check-In. For those of you who are new around here, each week I spend a short part of this podcast talking about what's happening astrologically and just some ideas of how to kind of use that energy for your own highest good, right? Like, how do you use it, or how do you be inspired by it? And this week in particular, we are coming right off of a full moon. So we have entered in the second half of the lunar cycle phase this month. And this part of the phase, I've mentioned this before. I've got a few other episodes that really deep dive into using the lunar cycles, but I like to think of it as kind of like moving around a circle. And we start at the new moon actually at the bottom of the circle. We kind of start to use a lot of energy to build ourselves up. And then the full moon happens at the very top of the circle. So at like 12 o'clock. And this is a place of culmination, of a ton of energy. There's a lot to be balancing and thinking about and illuminating our thoughts, right? If you think of the full moon shining in the sky, this is a time of sometimes where we receive a lot of information, but also it can be like shining a flashlight into the dark places where we say, oh gosh, I didn't see that. I didn't notice that. I've got to let this go or change this thing. And you can actually make revisions and move forward with bigger purpose. So we are coming off of this right now. And of course, it was also Easter weekend. What's interesting is that Easter always happens the Sunday after the first full moon after the spring equinox. So it actually has something to do with the stars and the lunar cycles and things like that as well. So, no matter what your religion is or your culture right now, you're probably noticing yourself, or at least those around you, celebrating the coming of spring, the triumph of life over death. And this is a beautiful time to really focus on that energy and to really start to feel that kind of strength that's rising up, that feeling of not just like new life, but also like vital life force energy. Like, here we are, we're not going to be slowed down. Like, sometimes even when you feel like things are coming to a screeching halt, things change and new energy comes through and new life begins, and it is a cycle. So we are part of a moving cycle. And I think that it can be very comforting to remember, especially when you start to really feel that inner sense of hope, an inner sense of strength within yourself. So I hope that you had a little taste of that during this full moon weekend. And I will say that, as we move through the next 2 weeks from now until the next new moon, that this is a really beautiful time to focus on that sense of balance. Focus on that sense of, what can I let go of? What is in my way? And how can I keep my eyes set towards the things that are most important to you? Sometimes that can happen in very small ways, and sometimes it needs to happen on a little bit of a larger scale, but only you know that. The other thing, of course, that I have to mention during today's Astro Check-In is that this week, the sun is moving from Aries, where it's been for the last month, to the earth sign of Taurus, where it will be from April 19th until May 20th. So we have a month full of Taurus energy ahead. And I think it is super fun to start to look specifically at self-care ideas that can kind of match with where the sun's energy is, to kind of help, one, just add some variety to our self-care routines. Two, to help us cultivate some of those practices that may not be as innate to us, because we're going to be probably most connected to the ones that feel the most innate and most true to our natal placements, which you might not even know, but you're going to be gravitating towards certain things that feel best for you. But if you kind of try to, throughout the year, try different kinds of self-care activities, you end up creating more balance across the entire spectrum, which is always better for you. So this month is going to be a perfect time for earthy self-care. And of course, these are probably the ones that I'm most passionate about, because I've got a lot of earth energy in my own chart. So these are the ones that I'm a little bit more preferential to. And if you start to think about it, like, what would that be? What does earthy kind of self-care feel like? Well, first of all, if you think about this time of year, you're going to be thinking about maybe getting outside and gardening, right? Like, maybe you need to be working with actual dirt and water and seeds and cultivating new life in the soil. And this is a great time to focus on a little garden, or planting some flowers, or going to the greenhouse and getting something, new plants for your home, something like that. This is a perfect time for that. Now, I live in Colorado, and most people say don't really plant things until after Mother's Day, which I do think is good news too. And I will say probably the best actual time to plant seeds would even be when the moon is in Taurus, which won't be for a couple more weeks. Right now, we're coming off of moon in Libra. So it'll actually be on the next new moon. We'll have a new moon in Taurus. So 2 weeks from now, it's going to be the weekend of April 30th into May 1st. That is going to be an awesome, awesome time to actually start those seedlings. I've heard many, many astrologers talk about just how much of like a green thumb the transit Taurus moon can give you, and just how good it is to connect with that then. So you could wait specifically for that self-care kind of fun activity for that weekend. But other things that you can do, Taurus is also this sign that's mantra is I have. So possessions are a really big thing for Taurus. And so if you start to look around your house, you can really combine this with some spring cleaning, I don't know why that was so hard for me to say, some spring cleaning, and start to get rid of stuff. This is a great time to go through your closet. I mean, I feel like I am always encouraging you to go through your closet, probably because whenever I record this podcast, I'm sitting in my closet and it's something that I am projecting out there. I really do need to go through my closet. But that is actually something that I'm planning on doing during this Taurus sun season, is just going through. My body has changed over the past year. Some of these clothes, one, the aesthetic just doesn't fit anymore. But two, just the sizing isn't quite right anymore. And I'm tired of second guessing that. So this is a great time to just let that stuff go, make room for what you want to bring in. Whether you're bringing in new life, new plants, new clothes, new opportunities, new jobs, whatever it is that you're wanting to cultivate in your life, it is a great time to make space for it by getting rid of the old stuff. And then finally, just thinking of grounding yourself. So if you want to look to Taurus for inspiration, Taurus is a yin earth sign. So it is very much about cultivating a slower sense of moving through life. It is about receiving. And you can't be receiving and open to what is yours if you are always moving through life crazy fast, right? And if you are much more of a crazy fast person, that's okay, but you have to have those times where you find balance by slowing yourself back down. So this is a beautiful time to do that. You don't need to hurry through everything. You want to take your time. You want to slow it down, and you want to practice being more grounded. So of course, I'm going to say this is a great time to practice more yoga. If you're not really that into yoga or familiar with yoga, I would love it if you would come practice with me. I teach 2 live classes a month, all gentle yoga, and I have such a huge library of all different kinds of gentle yoga classes available through Patreon specifically. So you can try it out. It's $12 a month to get access to the whole library. And of course, with Patreon, it's monthly membership based, but you can always cancel whenever you need. So if you want to just try it out and try some of my gentle, especially grounding yoga practices, I would love that. And also, I think you would love that right now, because finding that way to being grounded is just, it feels so good. At least it does for me. So I'm going to assume it does for you too. And, we all kind of need that, especially when our minds are running so quickly. And honestly, in this world, we live in a very yang world. So everything is so fast going. We're moving from one thing to the next. Also, I think as we get older, life speeds up more and more. So finding those practices that you can go to that slow you back down, that help you be grounded, this is always a good practice. But this time specifically, for all people, is a good time to root into those practices. So, all right, you guys, I think that should be enough. I will just give one last little plug. If you want more information or inspiration on this, if it would help to see it, you can go to my website and check out the self-care lunar guide. You can download it for free right from the homepage, just by joining my mailing list. And this will actually walk you through a bunch of different stuff. There's some rituals in there, and then there's towards the end there's a Taurus season self-care page, so you can be inspired from that. And you can also keep your eyes on the lookout for next month's self-care guide. That'll drop during the new moon, so next April 30th. And I will say also, if you join the Patreon, you'll get that delivered right to your inbox, and I'll have instructions and kind of hold space for you for the entire month ahead through May. It'll give you new moon information, full moon information, tons of inspiration. It'll give you a little preview into next month's Gemini season, which will already come up just like this. It seems like every month is just flying by. So that's my last little plug for that. Let's take a quick break, and then let's dive into those subtle red flags that you might need to look out for if you are being too self-deprecating, if you're being too hard on yourself, if you are maybe having those sneaky ways that you're actually just hating on yourself all the time, being way too hard and unrealistic with your own expectations. This is a really important topic for us all to consider. We'll take a quick break and then dive into it. All right, so full transparency. Last Friday night, I was watching TikTok late at night, and I came across this TikTok of this woman who was sharing her own commitments to aging gracefully and how that influenced her decision to stop dyeing her hair. So she must have been in her early 50s, and she was really sharing about how it's kind of complicated because as she gets older and older, and being a person who is a little bit more affluent, she has money, she said that all of her friends in her community were getting Botox and some plastic surgery, and she decided she didn't want to do that. She said, I just made this commitment to myself that I want to age gracefully. I don't want to force my body to not age. I want to be able to see myself aging into the person, with all of those little lines that I've created over the years that have been forged through me living my life. I want to own that. And when she sat down in the, hairstylist chair, she got her hair done and she just had this feeling. She was like, this is the last time that I'm going to do this. And, she goes home and shares this information with her husband and her son. And, at first her husband was actually kind of like afraid for her. Like, I think he was probably thinking like, what if you start to look a lot older? Or what if you don't fit in as much with your friends, or how's that going to be like for your kids, for their mom to have great, like all of those things we've been kind of conditioned to think are bad things in society. And of course, her son is sitting there and he's like, you know what, Mom, you're going to rock it. That's going to be awesome. Her son doesn't care. And she said, she had to really decide, like, I'm not going to do my hair for my husband. If he wants me to dye my hair, that's fine that he wants that, but this is me. I'm doing this for me. And she said she felt this huge connection to herself. And, it took several years to get it so it was more grown out and everything. And she said she fell in love with the process of seeing, what her hair patterns was, where were the silvers, where were the grays, how did it create this beautiful hair for her. And she said it took her husband a while to come around. She said, but now she goes, I've noticed that every time we're out on vacation, we're out doing something, that he'll be like, hun, like, go on ahead. Like, I have to take a picture. Your hair looks so incredible right now. And he didn't do that as a way to flatter her or just to reinforce her decision. He did it because he started to notice how beautiful it was, even though at first he wasn't really that on board with it. It took him some time. And I don't know, this story really, really resonated with me, and it just got me thinking so much about our society, our culture, our thoughts that are going through our head all the time, especially as we start to age, or especially as we live in this world that is so much geared toward maintaining certain physical expectations, right? Because maintaining these beauty standards, whichever ones you subscribe to, require money, require time, require maintenance, require energy, just to maintain it all. And it's complicated because as I started to research this, you would not believe the amount of articles I came across trying to find, just different thoughts on why it's so important to choose yourself and to validate your own looks and your own inner sense of beauty. That's what I really wanted to find. And instead, I came across article after article saying, first impressions are everything. And if you look too old, you could miss out on money at your job, or people won't respect you, or this or that. And I couldn't just turn a blind eye to that, because there is something to that. There is something about making a first impression, right? Like, people always say, like, you can't let all of your looks go. You can't just not care about your body or your clothing and show up dirty and disheveled, because people will judge you for that. Like, we know that that's true. Like, I could be as idealistic as I want and say, like, just live your own free life. you would laugh at me. You'd probably not want to connect with what I'm saying because we would know that that's a lie. In our society, how you present yourself does matter. And I think most of us do know that or have experienced that in some way, even this sense of self-doubt around what other people are doing to maintain their beauty standards. I think for many, many, many years, it mostly was focused on our hair, like how long we dyed our hair for, how we styled our hair, what kind of treatments we did, and all of that with our hair. And then it kind of started to move more and more towards skincare. And now it started to move more and more towards plastic surgery and other cosmetic procedures, and how everyday that has become, right? 20 years ago, only really, really rich people got Botox and fillers and stuff like that. And now it seems like everybody is getting it. I mean, I personally have never done that. And it's actually something that I have sat with, this idea of do I want to commit to my own self the same way that that lady committed to herself? I don't want to go through that. I don't want to look in the mirror right now and be like, oh my God, I have to stop these wrinkles before I start to look so much older. I mean, there's parts of me that are really genuinely worried about that too, because I haven't had kids yet, and I'm worried that they're going to see me super old when I do have children. But at the same time, I just am not sure that subscribing to that certain measure of maintaining my beauty is something that I want for myself. Now, I say that with very specifically about me because I believe all of these things are personal decisions. I dye my hair. And you know what? I have noticed that I am starting to get quite a bit of grays coming through for me. And it is one of the reasons why when I know I really need to get my hair touched up is when I start to see too many grays. For me, that is just something that I am not ready to step into at this point in my life. And so I am not here to judge you or anybody else for the way that they choose to keep up their own standards of beauty. One of the things that I notice that I don't really do is I don't spend a lot of money or focus on the clothing that I wear. And sometimes I feel like that might be a miss for me, that I could be actually a little bit more polished or better presentable if I did do that a little bit more. That's something that I've struggled with a little bit. And I think that's kind of where the heart of this conversation is that it is a struggle. Because I think we have our own innate insecurities that are within us. Some of those things are deeply connected to things we learned when we were little. Honestly, I think especially for a lot of women, and maybe men too, I mean, you'd have to let me know as a man if you resonate with this, but speaking as a woman, I think we learn a lot of our certain insecurities or our standards of beauty sometimes from our mother. Right? What are the messages that she said, or how she thought about her body, or the standards of beauty that she subscribed to? And how does that translate? I know for some of my friends, the ones that are very, very critical about their weight, their moms are also exactly like that, who have pushed that messaging down into their head. And so I think that's one thing. I think that some of this stuff comes from generations back. I mean, I'm sure those moms learned it from their moms. And then I also think that society and marketing play a huge, huge part in the struggle of this conversation, because literally everywhere you go, you are being told that you have a problem, because problems are how businesses sell you solutions, right? That is the role of business. It is, hey, you have this problem, but we can fix it for you. So you're being told, oh, you're too fat, you could do this, or your nutrition isn't right, you should do this, or your fitness routine isn't right, you should do this, buy this, do this thing, skincare, hair, cosmetic procedures. All of these things are part of a business thing. So the more that you subscribe to them, and the more you subscribe to that mentality, the more that you're going to be taking on all of these things that you need to buy and invest in. So, I mean, you can have your own thoughts on that. It is just true that everywhere you go, somebody's trying to tell you that there's something wrong with you or get you to think there's something wrong with yourself so that you buy the solution. And it's the sad thing is that it doesn't, as much as it happens as we're scrolling through the phone or walking through the mall and, more traditional marketing, on TV, this also starts to filter down through word of mouth. Okay, so let's say you go to lunch with a friend. And I'm just going to keep using like the Botox example because I think it's a common example and yet something that not everybody is doing, but more people are starting to do. So let's say you go to lunch with a friend and she's like, yeah, I just got this many cc's of Botox. Like, look, I'm doing it for this. It could be I'm doing it for my wedding, or I'm doing it for, I want to just keep up this look. And if you keep it up from the beginning, then you have a better time with it, blah, 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 right? There's a million reasons they might want to be doing this, but they do it. What's the first thing that goes through your head? For me, it would probably be like, should I be doing that? And then, do I need it? And then the next time I look in the mirror, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, am I getting too many wrinkles on my forehead? Okay. And then even if you start to let those thoughts go, they still sneak up behind you, and you start thinking like, if I don't start doing Botox now, like, will I regret it 5 years from now? Will I be, super wrinkled, or is my age starting to show? Do people start looking at me as like an older person? Are people going to not respect me? Or am I not going to fit in with my friends? Or, it's just like these silly, insecure thoughts start cropping up from within us, making us doubt ourselves, doubting our decisions, and starting to wonder, do I need to fix that problem too? Like, do I have that problem? And so I think the heart of what I want to share with you is what I'm also trying to tell myself, which is you get to decide what you want to do with your life. And of course, that sounds easy, but then it also you can kind of use that as a scapegoat and be like, well, I want the extensions, and I want the eyelashes, and I want the Botox, and I want all of these things because I want to be beautiful. Well, that's fine. If, like I said before, I am not here to judge. However, I really believe that we should be making decisions from a place of true personal power and not from a place of covering up pain or of believing that we are not good enough as we are. If you do not have an unshakable sense of inner happiness exactly as you are, then you are always going to be chasing something else. It might start out as getting your hair done. And then it might be like, oh, now I need the extensions. Now it's, I need my nails done every day. Now it's, I need to go to the gym 6 times a week. Now it's, I need these kind of clothes, and I need this kind of job, and I need this kind of cosmetic surgery. You are never going to stop. You are always going to be chasing something different because you are literally subscribing to the idea that there is always something wrong with you, that you are never enough. Got to sit with that for a second, right? Because that is what I want you and want all of us and want for myself, is I want us to know that we are good enough exactly as we are. It doesn't matter whether you've gained 25 pounds during this pandemic and you haven't lost any of it, okay? That is the position I'm sitting in right now. 1 year ago to, I think almost to this week, I recorded a podcast all about how I've gained a bunch of weight during the pandemic, and what I was going to do to commit to myself. And I will share with you, I am not 1 pound different than I was a year ago. I haven't lost any weight. And I have felt worried. And in fact, I felt a little bit of judgment from other people lately, a little bit. It's very, very subtle, right? But people be like, well, what's your workout schedule like? Or like, are you sure you want the full size, not the half size? Like, you can just feel it with people. And I've just gotten to this place where I just want to love myself. I want to love myself at this size when I'm feeling already insecure in my body. I want to love myself if I lose 20 pounds. I want to love myself if I get pregnant right now in this body and I gain 40 pounds during my pregnancy. I want to love myself so fiercely that that is my number one priority. And again, that is not to say that you can't want things for yourself, to want to lose weight, to want to have long hair, to want to have really beautiful nails because when you type, it makes you feel happy, or when you write a check, it makes you feel like that sense of inner sparkle, right? Like it is okay for you to decide, again, like what are those standards of beauty that you want to maintain, or ways to show off your own divine femininity or masculinity or whatever. But you have to be realistic with where you are in the world right now. And you also, I believe, and this is a judgment, but it's like, I believe you should be rooted in some kind of commitment towards yourself. So that way you are not constantly be running by the world around you. Because at the end of the day, you are a beautiful being that doesn't need to fix a damn thing about yourself. You deserve to age gracefully. Just because the Kardashians are getting a lot of cosmetic surgery doesn't mean that you do too. Just because your best friend is getting Botox doesn't mean that you need to. If you want to own your gray hair and you want to grow it out, like so many powerful females are choosing to do, you can choose that for yourself. If you get it all the way grown out and then you decide you don't like it anymore, you can cover it back up. But the most important thing here is that you are not letting other people's ideas of what is beautiful make you feel as though you are good enough or not good enough. You get to choose your own standards of beauty, and you get to look at the life that you live and figure out what matters for the world that you live in. And I wish that we lived in a world that was a lot slower and a lot more accepting. Even now, I think that I mentioned it as a year ago. You can always go back and listen to my podcast from a year ago on gaining weight. But I was a very overweight teenager, and I've always struggled with being in a bigger body. And when I was growing up, I graduated high school in 2005, and I will say, like, there was not plus size clothing in stores when I was in high school. There was maybe one tiny little section, and it was full of ugly clothes, like really ugly clothes. And, I had to shop for all of my clothing my senior year at Lane Bryant, which was like clothing for, not high school seniors, that's for sure. And it is hard for me now, even almost 20 years later, to realize that there's so many more options as far as clothing goes for people who are all different shapes and sizes. And I love that, but I'm also still a little hesitant, or like don't totally believe it. And there's a lot of that I need to work through. But what I was going to say is that I think we're starting to move through a new phase of beauty. In the 90s, it was all about being so skinny, like so rail thin. And now we've got this new thing happening where there's like, big booties and thick thighs and, big boobs and all of these things. And it is seen as beautiful. But like 100% of the photos that you're being, shown are completely photoshopped. Like, just the proportions aren't even possibly real, right? It's like the waists are so thin but the hips are so wide, and everything is being altered to look a different way. And I think that is one of, again, the struggles of the world that we live in right now, is that we have to have like these innate inner blinders that come up that say, is that real? Is that something I even want? Is that something I should even be concerned about? Because if you live your whole life worried about what other people are doing or being, where are you? Don't you matter? Isn't what is on your heart and your priority list and the body that you're living in, don't you matter? Don't your own wants for your own body matter? They do. And so I just want to be that voice that reminds you of that, because I know that that conversation's not happening out there. And there are some people who are doing kind of like those before and afters with the photos, where they're like, at this angle I look like this, but at this angle, like, my body is just like yours. I've got cellulite on my legs, or my stomach has, different stretch marks on it, or things like that, like, where our bodies are natural. And yet, if we only look to what's being published or influenced on, we're going to have our reality kind of distorted into what's normal. And we have to be careful how we talk about that too. Because, I think about how when I was growing up, I just think, what were those messages that I was receiving? And I think I received quite a lot of messages around what a woman's body should look like, what was attractive to a man. And over the past, 20 years or so, I've learned that my original understanding of that is not the same thing for every man. Like, people are unique and people have different tastes. And, it's one of my favorite parts about being in my relationship with Dave is that, and especially lately, as I've been kind of, like I said, dealing with this own insecurity that I'm working through in my own body, that he has just been this unwavering support around, I love you as you are. Your body is awesome. You're beautiful as you are. If it changes, fine, but you don't have to change. You're awesome. And I've needed that reinforcement. Like, it feels so good to hear that from him. And I just think, wouldn't that be nice if I could be that same voice for myself all the time? So if this all resonates with you, what if we just really work on self-validation? Because you may not have a partner who's going to be that voice for you. You may not have a parent who's going to be that voice for you. You may not have a coworker who's going to be that voice for you. Well, one, you can start tuning out voices that make you feel even more insecure in your body or in your life, whether they're making you feel secure about the way you look or making you feel insecure about the choices that you're trying to do, the life you're trying to make for yourself. You can find your own inner sense of strength from within. And you have to be that person for yourself sometimes, right? You can't always rely on other people to build you up, although it is nice and we are grateful for those people that do. But we can start with a practice of self-validation. So watch out for those thoughts of, I am so bad, or I am so fat, or I have dropped the ball, or I'm not good enough, or I could never. Like, we have to stop thinking that way. And we have to start replacing those thoughts with validating our accomplishments and our own strengths and the things that we love about ourselves. We have to draw our focus onto that. And, we can't simply only do that. We also have to empathize with ourselves, with the struggles, right? It's like why I can admit to you that I've been struggling, that sometimes when I have those conversations with my friends and I go home and look in the mirror, like, I have those doubts that come up, and I want to empathize with myself. I want to be the person who actually can sit with my emotions of pain around how I look, or at least, you can't brush off those feelings, right? Because brushing off those feelings is the same thing as stuffing it down or trying to put a Band-Aid on it or a quick fix. You have to sit with how you feel, be real with yourself, and then that self-compassion comes in, that is the actual healer that says, it's okay. Yeah, I know you feel that way, but what if there was a different way to think about this? It's a perspective shift. And that might feel like a miracle to get, but that's when people say miracles are possible, because you can change the way you think. You really can. And some things are bigger and harder than others, right? When we're really working on something that feels really big for us and we're really vulnerable for, we feel like there's a lot that depends on it, those things are going to be harder to shift. So you got to start maybe with the smaller things and then kind of work your way up there. And with all of this, you have to choose what your priorities are. and not get swept away. I mean, especially like, don't get swept away in all of the problems that the world is telling you that you have. Prioritize what is the most meaningful for you. And you might know that answer right away, or you might not know that answer for a couple more months. It might be some stuff that you have to sort through first. But all of this can be solved with that self-validation and with committing to loving yourself and making choices for yourself from a place of self-love and not from a place of hating on yourself. And if this message really resonates with you, I would love it if you would just drop me a quick message, maybe either over on Instagram or on TikTok. You can find me on Instagram at A Bit From Within, or on TikTok, it's at Felicia Marty. And I would love to know if this resonated with you, because I've been actually thinking about creating kind of like a self-paced workshop specifically on this subject, where it can kind of walk you through a deep dive process into loving yourself and owning who you are and acknowledging your strengths and kind of helping you sort out your priorities and the commitments you want to make to yourself. So if you'd be interested in that, I would love to know if that would speak to you, if that'd be something you're interested in. All right, you guys, that is it for today. First of all, I want to say thank you for joining me. And second of all, I want to say let's do a card drawing to end today's podcast episode. So right now I've pulled out the Wild Offerings deck. This is a deck by Tasha Silver, Wild Offering Oracle. We're just going to shuffle these cards until one pops out, and it's kind of the universe's contribution. Okay, here we go. Actually, 2 cards just flew out of the deck. It kind of came as a pair. I don't think that's ever happened during a podcast reading before. The first one is despair. I need your divine intercession right now, O Great Spirit. Lift this darkness from my soul. Free me from this burden. Open me to your highest plan. May I be a peaceful vessel for your love. And the second one is contentment. You guys, I can literally not make this stuff up. Okay, contentment. You can learn to rest in what you already have and already are. Suddenly you remember, I am right here resting in God. That is what we're talking about. This is literally it right here. There's 2 choices. There's the path of despair, the path of contentment. And you can heal the path of despair by opening yourself up and freeing yourself from the darkness, from the trap, from the problem that you have believed that you are, and move into accepting what you already are, the beautiful, divine soul that you are, the body that you're in this lifetime. I love that. Wow, the universe is always working in mysterious ways. Beautiful. All right, that will do it for today. We will wrap up today's episode. Thank you for joining me, and please feel free to share this episode with somebody who you feel like would resonate with this topic. I know so many people out there, especially other women, are going to really be able to sink their teeth into this topic, and feel free to add to it. I'd love to have an ongoing conversation with you. You know where to find me. You can join me on Patreon every week. We're sharing more guided meditations, lunar guides, lots of gentle yoga happening, wonderful community there. Or of course, you can check out any of the offerings that are available on my website, abitfromwithin.com. And of course, you can join me each week right here at the A Bit From Within podcast. Thank you again for being here, and I'll talk to you next time.